Alright, welcome back to the Unwanted Undead Adventure anime review. Excuse me, episode number 4. We're discussing episodes 7 through 10 of the series. So, 7 picks up right where 6 left off, where you had Rent, Laura, and what was the name of the adventure here? I have the. Let's see. No. Okay, here we go. I know Laura was she was the purple hair girl. I remember that. I want to be sure I got this correct here. Riz. Okay. So, yeah, so basically they go in and they counter the dungeon boss, which is a giant slime. Which they use, which of course he basically, they had a flashback till ahead of time that he actually suspected that they should basically, work as a team, which they do. And of course, Riz basically acts as a distraction, while Laura basically builds up magic in order to defeat the monster, which he does. And everyone else racing to get to the finish line, but the whole thing is basically just being the monster and surviving the experience, and also judging their character to see if they're a good person or not to basically pass the exam. Yep, that's simply the reason for it. And of course, the guy who passes them, well, basically congratulates them on this. They basically, you show the fact you're a guild employee. Yep, there it is. And then of course, there's Sheila, where basically gives a report from her brother. Yes, her brother. The form they all passed. And then she has a private conversation with Rit, where she basically takes in a private room. You're thinking, oh, is she going to do something with him sexually? No. Basically, she's here to talk to him about who he really is. The fact that Vivi was actually, of course, well, Lorraine's last name. And the fact that he is the same person who went missing. Rent Vina. Yep. And basically, this is when, because the episode is called Magical Contract, basically, she forms a contract with him to keep his secret intact. They do, of course, go to Lorraine, which, of course, she has no issue with it at all because of the fact it's a magical contract. Of course, suspect this to happen. And Shelley becomes basically sort of a woman who comes over occasionally. She goes over once after this to have dinner with her. Well, because she knows Red's secret. And, by the way, in case you're wondering, what happened to those other two? Well, they do, in fact, form a official party together. And I think they're seeing maybe once after this, but that's it. So, after the magical contract is signed, which, of course, if she violates it, in the original material, basically, she becomes a slave. Or basically, she's sold to a country where slavery is legal. But he knows basically not going to harm her that way. And the whole thing with 8 is a really interesting standalone episode where 8 and 9 basically are kind of interesting. So 8 basically is this. So Rent basically goes on a quest. His first quest as a new bronze rank adventurer. There's this guy asking an adventurer to help out for freelance. where there's no problem going. And the whole thing is about this Lord of the Lake. He does expect something's off about the fact this thing just randomly showed up completely out of nowhere, demanding sacrifices, and he of course also just does all some merchants that are very suspicious. And the whole thing is he's trying to prevent his sister from being, handed over. By the way, they're only in this one episode. There's also suspicion he has to stay away from doing quests for a while because of it's better. So, it's suspect. Well, basically, he just wants his sister, his only family, to die per se, and after do some investigating related to. So basically, he goes with them for the festival to be the sacrifice, and then he proceeds to attack the creature. It was depicted in silhouette. This was a giant snake, but nope, it's a kraken. And he points out though, krakens don't hang out in lakes. And plus, krakens don't fire out of their eyes. So then he proceeds to jump right through and figures out that, oh, this is not a monster. This is an illusion casted by the merchants. Which he proceeds to beat the crap out of all of them. And they all surrendered. Oh yeah, and it turns out they actually didn't kill the girls. They were actually on a hut on the other side of the lake. And their plan was to sell these girls into slavery. Just cause. But it wasn't the kidnap adventurous thing. But it was a nice little... But also, Rent gets a new sword, which leads to this. He learns new techniques, which used to basically battle something else later on. So, then he is given another quest. From a young girl, which of course he is hired to look for a medicine to heal basically this nun who's sick, Sister Lillian. By the way, the girl, her name is Aliza. That's her name. Basically, the orphanage. Of course, Sister thinks, oh, maybe he's hired him to deal with the monsters in the basement. What she does, they're rats. One of the rats bites him, and the fur changes color. Yep, this rat becomes his familiar. He takes it home, basically familiar, and he initially wanted to call it Shadow, but they later said the name of Edel. Yeah, and he can actually use Ren's abilities. So, and of course, Lorraine basically likes it. She thought only vampires get familiars, but didn't suspect basically the servants basically have them. So then they go on the quest basically to find the drag, and of course they go where the dragon is. He fights basically a monster there, beats it, and then comes across a whole lot of dragon blood flowers, and he picks a few of them. And there's a guy he meets there, an elf, named Isaac. Which, of course, they have a conversation, the fact that he reveals his name. And this comes to play later on after this. So, then he works, and he basically meets up with like an alchemist or adventurer, which they make medicine for Lillian, and of course, she's able to live no problem. And the girl wants to adventure, and, he basically, in order to teach magic, he recommends, not by name, basically Lorraine teach her magic. He does talk to her later on, and she's like, she has no problem with doing that at all. Just be sure. It's like, oh, you have a lot of free time in your hands. And there's a funny thing at the end of the episode where basically, because he thinks like, oh, he's around all these beautiful women, and then he starts saying something about her, like comment on her appearance, like how gorgeous she is, and he's like, oh, do you say that to flatter women? He's like, no, that was on my mind when that was all I was thinking when it comes to you. And she's like, oh, thank you. Yeah, comment how beautiful she is. Her skin, it's like, wow. Damn. No wonder why Rand's a lucky bastard. Have this beautiful woman he basically just stays with. Yeah. So, I thought that was quite a nice to do. And then he's given a summons to visit this house. So, the house is referred to as the Latour household. They're not exactly an old family, but they do have some influence. So then he goes to the place and he arrives like a nice looking place, but it has like a maze in front of it. Yes, a maze. Where he's like, he has to chart the thing and he tries his best, like, and it seems like he's only like partway through the maze and that's when the episode ends. But yeah, really good 4 episodes. Love these. And I have 2 more to go. And after the next 2, I will start the 2 new anime that came out Saturday. I don't know about one of them anyways. I don't have a definitive release date for that one. But yeah, I'm going to do, well, first Reincarnated and Prince and the new saga. And then I'll start my next anime, my next new bench watching anime, which this one's going to be interesting. Okay? But see you in the next video. Bye.